Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
I built Dad's business from the ground up after dropping out of uni, while my golden brother went on to study and work in finance. After 7 years of grinding, my dad wanted to give my brother half of everything I worked hard for. I went scorched earth. All right, Reddit. So I spent 7 years turning my dad's dying $300,000 shop into an $8 million empire. Then he brought in my finance bro brother, who'd never held a wrench, to be my CEO at the same salary. So I took the clients, the crew, and started my own shop 3 miles away. Now I'm pulling 1.2 million monthly while they face karma. Grab some popcorn and enjoy the chaos. My old man started Rodriguez Heavy Equipment Repair in 1989, back when a handshake meant something and your reputation was the only marketing you needed. 36 years of crawling under excavators, rebuilding transmissions, and keeping construction companies running. I, 32 male, grew up in that shop. Started at 11, sweeping floors and organizing bolts. By 14, I could diagnose a failing hydraulic pump by sound alone. Spent every summer and weekend there while my older brother Drew was off doing whatever golden children do. Soccer camps, SAT prep, networking events, apparently. Drew's 38 now, 6 years older than me. Always been mom and dad's pride and joy. The one who made it out, got his finance degree from a decent university, landed a job at some investment firm downtown. Dad used to show off Drew's business cards at family gatherings like they were Olympic medals. Meanwhile, I'd show up with diesel fuel on my boots and get asked when I was going to do something real with my life. I tried the college thing. Really did. Enrolled in mechanical engineering with a business minor, figured I'd come back with credentials that'd make Dad respect what I was doing. Lasted exactly 1 semester. Sitting in lecture halls while some professor who'd never held a wrench explained theoretical load distributions felt like a waste of time I didn't have. The shop needed help. Dad was drowning in work and couldn't afford to hire anyone decent. So I dropped out, told Dad I wanted in for real, and he said the magic words, "Stick with me, kid. Build this thing right, and someday it'll be yours." That was 7 years ago, 2018. The shop was pulling maybe $300,000 annually. Dad was working himself to death, and we had 3 part-time mechanics who showed up when they felt like it. Our fleet was one van that broke down more than the equipment we serviced. I changed everything. First move, specialize. Dad took any job that walked through the door, fixing some farmer's tractor, servicing a contractor's pickup, whatever. I said no. We went industrial only. Construction equipment, mining rigs, municipal vehicles, commercial fleets. Companies with maintenance budgets and recurring contracts, not one-off jobs paying peanuts. Then I pitched a concept that sounded insane. 24/7 emergency service. Every other shop in the area closed at 5. But construction companies need their loaders running at 6 a.m. Mines operate around the clock. Logistics companies can't afford downtime. So we started offering after-hours emergency repairs at premium rates. Double for nights, triple for holidays. Suddenly, every site foreman in 3 counties had my cell number. Within 18 months, we went from 1 van to 8. From 3 unreliable guys to 20 solid mechanics. I implemented digital work orders, GPS tracking on the service vehicles, and inventory management that actually made sense. Dad kept working on tools because he couldn't help himself, but I was running everything else. Sales, operations, crew management, client relations. The older mechanics tested me hard at first. Some kid in his 20s telling veterans how to run jobs? Yeah, that went over great, but I shut them up fast. By year 4, we hit 40 employees and 12 service trucks. Revenue jumped from $300,000 to $4.2 million. By year 6, we were pushing $8 million annually with 53 employees and 18 vehicles. $8 million. Dad and I were both drawing $160,000 salaries, more than double what he'd made before, but we weren't exactly rich. Most profit got reinvested, but we were building something real. Our client retention rate was 94%. When companies needed emergency service, they called us first. The crew respected me because I never asked them to do anything I wouldn't do myself. I'd taught most of them advanced hydraulics diagnostics. Drew, meanwhile, was living his best life downtown. Nice condo, nice car, nice suits. He'd visit maybe twice a year, usually around holidays, always making these subtle comments about how I should have finished my education or developed some professional ambition. Professional ambition. Right. Like turning a struggling $300,000 operation into an $8 million company while he shuffled Excel sheets wasn't ambitious enough. My girlfriend Jen, now fiance, but we'll get there, actually understood what I did. When I'd come home at midnight smelling like hydraulic fluid, she'd just laugh and throw my clothes straight in the wash. Her dad ran a plumbing company, so she got it. She respected the work. Mom and Dad? They hated her from day one. She's not refined enough, Mom said once. Translation: Jen grew up working class, didn't do the whole pageant smile thing, and wasn't impressed by Dad's stories about the family legacy. At family dinners, Mom would ask pointed questions about Jen's career trajectory and whether she'd be continuing to work after marriage. Dad barely acknowledged her existence. What they really wanted was for Drew to give them grandchildren. Mom dropped hints constantly, showed Drew pictures of his friends' kids, talked about how nice it would be to have little ones around before they got too old. Then came Dad's 67th birthday dinner 3 months ago. That's when everything went sideways. We're all there, me, Jen, Drew, Mom, Dad, at this nice steakhouse Dad likes. Dad orders his third drink and starts talking numbers. Mentions the shop's doing nearly $8 million now. Mentions his declining health. The decades of asbestos exposure are catching up, plus arthritis in both hands. Drew perks up like a hunting dog catching scent. 8 million? Seriously? Gross revenue, I clarify. Margins aren't huge after costs. But Drew's already doing math in his head. I can see it. And Dad's got this look like he's about to announce something big. I've been thinking about succession, Dad says. About legacy. About family. Here we go. Drew, I know you've done well in finance. Built yourself a good career. But I was hoping you might consider coming home, working with your brother, building this business together. Drew actually laughs. Dad, I appreciate the thought, but I make $180,000 a year managing portfolios. I'm not exactly looking to get my hands dirty. You wouldn't have to, Dad says, leaning forward. That's what your brother does. I'm talking about bringing real business strategy to the operation, proper financial management, growth planning. And just like that, I see where this is heading. We could professionalize the whole operation, Drew continues, warming to the idea now. Bring in systems, processes, scale it properly. With my financial background and management experience, the business has scaled just fine, I interrupt. We went from 300,000 to 8 million in 7 years. That's impressive, Drew says with that condescending smile he does. But there's a difference between working hard and working smart. Dad built a great foundation, but without proper business framework, I implemented the framework. Every system we use, every process, every client contract, I built that. Mom jumps in. Drew has education, sweetheart. He understands corporate strategy in ways you couldn't possibly. Because I dropped out. Awkward silence. Jen squeezes my hand under the table. Dad's looking excited. Mom's looking smug. Drew's looking like he just discovered a $20 bill in his pocket. Let's talk more about this, Dad says. I think having both my sons working together could be something special. A real family business. I should have seen it coming. Should have known Dad's "someday this'll be yours" promise had an expiration date. But I actually believed him. I'd earned it. I'd built it. That had to count for something. Turns out blood counts more. And Drew's blood apparently came with a business degree, which made it premium vintage. The calls started the next day. Dad wanting to explore the opportunity. Drew sending me articles about family business succession planning. Mom talking about how wonderful it would be to have both sons working together, how it was Dad's dream come true. Nobody asked what I wanted. Nobody mentioned that I'd spent 7 years building this empire while Drew collected paychecks somewhere else. But hey, family's family, right? 2 weeks later, Dad called a formal meeting with lawyers. That's when I knew I was screwed. Dad's estate attorney sat behind a mahogany desk with documents stacked like artillery shells. I walked in expecting a conversation about eventually buying Dad out, maybe discussing partnership terms. What I got was a corporate execution disguised as a family reunion. Dad started with the softening up routine. Talked about legacy, about keeping the business in the family, about his dream of seeing his sons work together. Drew sat there in his Brooks Brothers suit, looking like he was attending a board meeting at Goldman Sachs instead of discussing a diesel repair shop. Then the attorney slid paperwork across the desk. The proposal. Dad would transition ownership over the next 12 months. Final split. 45% to Drew, 45% to me, 10% retained by Dad as advisory shares. Drew would come on as CEO at $210,000 annually. I'd be COO, Chief Operating Officer, which sounds important until you realize it means doing all the actual work while someone else gets credit. This structure provides optimal management efficiency, the attorney explained in that bloodless voice. Drew's financial expertise combined with your operational knowledge creates complementary leadership. Complementary, like I was the sidekick in my own story. Drew will handle strategic planning, financial management, and business development, Dad continued. You'll manage the day-to-day operations, crew oversight, the technical side. So I do what I've been doing, I said slowly. And Drew does. What exactly? Executive leadership, Drew said. Setting direction, building frameworks, managing growth strategy. The things that require MBA-level thinking. MBA-level thinking. About a business he'd never worked in. Serving clients he'd never met. In an industry he didn't understand. I've already drafted a 5-year growth plan, Drew added, pulling out his own document. Standardization of service protocols, expansion into 3 additional markets, implementation of Six Sigma quality management. Six Sigma? We fix excavators, not manufacture semiconductors. That attitude is exactly why we need professional management. Drew smiled like he was explaining arithmetic to a child. Dad built something great here, and you've done solid work maintaining it. But to really scale, I scaled it. From 300,000 to 8 million. That was me. Using Dad's foundation, Mom interjected. She'd been quiet until now, lurking in the corner like a spider. You had every advantage. His reputation, his client base, his facilities. Drew's building his success from scratch in a competitive industry. From scratch. In a competitive industry. As if I'd inherited a thriving empire instead of a struggling shop that barely covered rent. What happens if I say no? I asked. The room went cold. Dad looked uncomfortable. Drew looked annoyed. The attorney looked like this wasn't his first succession fight. Then I sell to a third party, Dad said quietly. I'm 67, son. My lungs are shot. Arthritis is getting worse. I need to transition this business before I can't anymore. Either it stays in the family, or it doesn't. Family means both sons, Mom added. Not just one. There it was. The ultimatum wrapped in emotional manipulation. Accept Drew as my boss. Or watch Dad sell the business I'd built to strangers. And the salary split? I asked the attorney. Why does Drew get the same as me when I've been here 7 years, and he's been here 7 minutes? Executive positions command commensurate compensation, the attorney said. CEO and COO roles traditionally align in similarly sized operations. Plus, Drew added, leaning back in his chair, I'm taking a pay cut from my current position. Leaving $180,000 to come make $210,000 is barely an upgrade when you factor in career risk. Career risk. Coming to run a business that was already successful. Career risk. I wanted to flip the table. Instead, I nodded, smiled, asked a few clarifying questions, told them I needed time to think. Don't take too long, Dad said as I stood to leave. I'd like this resolved before the holidays. Walking out, I called Jen. We need to talk. How bad? Nuclear. Next morning, I called Dad. I've thought about it. Let's move forward with the plan. Dad sounded relieved, excited even. That's wonderful, son. Drew's already putting together onboarding materials. He's very thorough. I'm sure he is. Oh, and one more thing. Drew mentioned it might be good if you dressed more professionally when he starts. Business casual at minimum. First impressions matter when we're building this new structure. Business casual. At a diesel repair shop where I spent half my time under vehicles. Business casual, so I'd look executive before what? Sure, Dad. Whatever Drew thinks is best. I hung up and immediately started planning my exit. Because forget this entire situation. But first, I needed to understand exactly how much damage I could do on my way out. Drew's first day at Rodriguez Heavy Equipment Repair looked like a LinkedIn influencer's fantasy. He showed up in slate gray slacks, a pressed button-down, and leather dress shoes that probably cost more than my truck payment, to a shop where we service mining equipment, where the concept of staying clean is a cruel joke the universe plays on mechanics. Dad gave him the full tour, introducing him to every crew member like he was presenting the crown prince to his subjects. This is my son Drew. He'll be helping us take the company to the next level. Most of the guys just nodded, shook his hand, went back to work. But I saw the looks, the raised eyebrows. Big Tommy, my lead foreman who'd been with me since year 2, caught my eye and made a subtle, what the heck gesture. Drew's tour lasted about 30 minutes before he retreated to the office we'd cleared out for him. Within an hour, he'd rearranged the furniture and was on a call with some consultant about operational optimization. I spent the day working on a transmission rebuild for one of our mining clients. Around 3 p.m., Drew emerged from his office, carefully stepping around oil stains like they might attack him. Hey, can we talk about the crew's scheduling inefficiencies? He called over the pneumatic tools. I wiped my hands on a rag. What inefficiencies? Well, I've been reviewing the logs, and there's significant variance in job completion times. Some jobs that should take 2 hours are taking 4. That's unacceptable. Those are estimates. Real-world repairs don't follow a spreadsheet. With proper training and standardization, these guys are master mechanics with decades of experience. They're not the problem. Drew frowned. Then what is? Nothing. We complete 96% of jobs at or under estimated time. That's industry leading. According to whose metrics? According to having actual experience in this industry. Tense silence. A few mechanics pretended not to watch while absolutely watching. Look, Drew said, lowering his voice slightly. I get that this is an adjustment, but Dad brought me in for a reason. I have skills you don't. And if we're going to work together, you mean if I'm going to work under you? I mean if we're going to build something bigger than either of us could alone. Corporate buzzword bingo. He'd hit 3 cliches in one sentence. Impressive, really. That evening, Dad called me into his office. Mom was there too. Never a good sign. Drew mentioned you were resistant today, Dad started. I answered his questions. With an attitude, Mom added. He's trying to help. The least you could do is show some respect. Respect? For a guy who'd worked exactly 0 days in this industry, who couldn't diagnose a blown head gasket if his life depended on it, who was being handed co-ownership of a business he'd contributed nothing to building. I'm trying to adjust, I said carefully. It's a big change. Speaking of change, Mom continued, Dad and I have been talking. Now that Drew's coming back and building his life here, we're hoping he'll settle down, start a family. Here we go. That's great, I said neutrally. We think it's time for grandchildren, before we're too old to enjoy them. She paused. Drew's at a good place in life for that. Stable, mature, ready to be a father. The implication hung there like hydraulic smoke. Drew was the suitable parent. Drew would provide the acceptable grandchildren. I was the perpetual screw-up with the unrefined girlfriend who wore jeans to family dinner. Jen and I are engaged, I said. We're thinking of setting a date. Mom's face did something complicated. That's your choice. We just think Drew's path might be more aligned with what this family needs right now. This family needs grandkids through the right son. Got it. Don't be dramatic, Dad said. Your mother's just expressing that Drew's in a more stable position. Because he didn't waste his life in a shop, I finished. Yeah, I understand perfectly. I left before saying something I'd regret, or something I wouldn't regret, which was more likely. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in corporate colonization. Drew implemented morning stand-up meetings where mechanics had to report their planned activities for the day. He introduced a process improvement submission system that nobody used. He hired a business consultant at $15,000 for a 3-month contract to assess our operational efficiency. The crew was miserable. Tommy came to me at the end of week 2. Boss, he said. They all called me boss, not Drew. What the heck is happening? Half the guys are looking for other jobs. This corporate nonsense doesn't work in our business. I know. Then do something. I'm working on it. What I was working on. An exit strategy that would crater their operations so thoroughly they'd feel it for years. I started with client meetings, casual check-ins with our major accounts, the relationships I'd built personally over 7 years. Mentioned I might be making some moves soon, asked if they'd be interested in continuing to work with me specifically. 8 out of 10 said yes immediately. These weren't Dad's clients. They were mine. Then I approached the crew, individually, carefully, starting with the guys I trusted most. Asked if they'd be interested in jumping ship if I started something new. 12 mechanics said yes within a week. The best ones. The guys who could handle complex hydraulics, electrical diagnostics, the skilled work that separated great shops from mediocre ones. Found a warehouse space 3 miles away. Smaller than our current facility, but enough to start. Used most of my savings plus a $150,000 loan from Jen's dad, who understood the situation better than my own parents, to lease the space and buy basic equipment. The whole time I smiled, nodded, went along with Drew's idiotic initiatives, wore the business casual clothes Dad requested, played the obedient little brother role. 3 weeks later, I was ready. Everything lined up. Clients secured, crew committed, space leased, equipment purchased. Time to introduce Drew to the concept of consequences. I picked a Monday morning for maximum impact. Drew had scheduled one of his ridiculous strategic planning sessions for 9 a.m., which meant the whole crew would be there watching him prattle on about synergies or whatever. I arrived at 7 earlier than usual. Dad was already there, old habits die hard, working on something in Bay 3. Morning, I said. Morning, son. Coffee's fresh. Actually, I need to talk to you about something. We went to his office. I had a folder with me, my resignation letter, copies of my new business registration, the lease agreement for my warehouse, and a list of the clients who'd committed to moving with me. Professional, clean, undeniable. I'm leaving, I said, starting my own shop. Most of your major clients are coming with me, along with 12 of our best mechanics. Here's my formal notice. Dad just stared at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. You're, what? Leaving. I'm not going to spend the next 30 years playing second fiddle to someone who doesn't know a hydraulic pump from a hole in the ground. These clients? Dad's voice went hollow. That's Morrison Construction, Bridgeport Patterson Mining. These are our biggest. They're my clients, Dad. I built those relationships. They trust me, not the company name. And they've agreed to move their business to my new operation. This is theft. It's competition. You wanted Drew to bring professional business practices? Well, here's one. Non-compete clauses. You never had me sign one. Neither did the mechanics. So legally, ethically, I'm in the clear. Dad's face went red. After everything I did for you, you gave me a job. I turned it into an empire. There's a difference. I was going to give you half. You were going to give me 45%, same as the guy who showed up last month with zero experience, and you were going to make him my boss. That's not a gift. That's an insult. The door opened. Drew walked in, saw the document spread across Dad's desk, and his expression went from confused to furious in about 2 seconds. What's this? Your brother's betraying us, Dad said. I'm competing with you. Again, there's a difference. Drew snatched up my client list. You can't just steal our accounts. Watch me. I built those relationships over 7 years while you were moving money around in spreadsheets. They're coming with me because they value competence. This is sabotage. We'll sue you for what? Starting a business in an industry I know? You'd lose, and you know it. No non-compete, no confidentiality agreements, no proprietary trade secrets. Dad never believed in that corporate nonsense, remember? Drew looked at Dad like he'd just realized his father was an idiot. You didn't have him sign a non-compete? I trusted him, Dad said quietly. Yeah, well, trust doesn't mean much when he's stealing our business, Drew shot back. I'm not stealing anything. I'm taking what's mine. By now, other mechanics were arriving for the morning shift. Tommy poked his head in, saw the situation, and gave me a slight nod. I walked out of the office and addressed the crew. 12 guys who'd been with me for years, who knew this moment was coming. Morning, everyone. Quick announcement. I'm leaving to start my own operation. For those of you who've already committed to joining me, we start at the new facility Wednesday morning. For everyone else, no hard feelings. You're good mechanics, and I respect whatever choice you make. Dead silence. Then Tommy spoke up. What's the address, boss? I gave it. 11 other mechanics pulled out their phones and typed it in. Drew burst out of the office. You can't do this. You're destroying the business. Mom appeared. She'd been in the back office somewhere, probably listening to the whole thing. Her face was cold fury. You ungrateful little... Careful, Mom. Wouldn't want to say something you can't take back. After everything we gave you, everything we sacrificed. This is about that girl, isn't it? Mom's voice dropped to a sneer. She's been in your ear, telling you deserve more. Jen's the only person who actually supported what I built. Unlike my family. She's not family, Mom said. And she never will be. We wanted Drew to give us grandchildren because at least we know they'd be raised right. There it was. Everything they'd been implying for months finally said out loud. I was the expendable son with the wrong girlfriend, and Drew was the golden child who'd provide acceptable heirs. Well, enjoy Drew's hypothetical grandkids, I said. I'll enjoy my actual business. I walked out. Tommy and the others followed. We loaded our personal tools into trucks and left without another word. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Drew was standing in the parking lot, suit already dirty from who knows what, looking like a man who just realized his executive position came with actual work attached. Dad stood in the doorway of the shop, looking 10 years older than he had that morning. Mom was on her phone, probably calling relatives to complain about my betrayal. And me? I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of expectation, of family obligation, of playing the grateful little brother, all of it gone. Time to build something real, something mine, something they couldn't take away because they decided the wrong son deserved it. Rodriguez Heavy Equipment Repair opened for business, Wednesday at 6 a.m., 4 service bays, 12 mechanics, enough equipment to handle our initial client load, and 0 corporate nonsense. By noon, we'd completed 4 jobs. By the end of week 1, we were booked solid for 3 weeks out. Morrison Construction transferred their entire fleet maintenance contract, worth $8 million annually, on day 3. Bridgeport followed. Patterson Mining called personally to confirm they were moving all their business over. Turns out when you build real relationships, clients follow the person, not the company name. Who knew? The crew worked their tails off, but they were smiling. I paid them 18% more than the old shop, gave them better schedules, and treated them like the skilled professionals they were instead of cogs in some corporate machine. Within 3 weeks, I hired 4 more mechanics. Within 6 weeks, we'd leased additional space in the building next door and expanded to 6 bays. The loan from Jen's dad was for $150,000 over 3 years, but at our current growth rate, I'd have it paid back in 14 months. Meanwhile, the old shop was hemorrhaging. I heard through industry contacts that they'd lost 3 more mechanics in the first month, guys who weren't thrilled about Drew's process improvement initiatives or his habit of explaining their own jobs to them. My phone exploded with calls from my family. Dad called 53 times in the first week. Mom left voicemails ranging from angry to guilt-trippy to borderline hysterical. Drew sent emails with subject lines like legal consequences and theft of proprietary information that his lawyer probably told him not to send. I ignored all of them because I was too busy building something that actually worked. Jen and I set a wedding date. Next summer, small ceremony, just close friends and her family. My family wasn't invited. That conversation with Mom about being raised right had burned whatever bridge was left. 3 months in, we hit $420,000 in monthly revenue, hired 6 more mechanics, upgraded our equipment, implemented a trainee program for younger guys wanting to learn the trade. The business I'd envisioned, based on skill, respect, and actually giving a darn about the work, was becoming real. Around month 4, I got a voicemail from Drew. His voice sounded different, tired, defeated. "We need to talk. Please, it's urgent." I deleted it. 2 days later, another voicemail. This time from Dad, and he sounded worse than I'd ever heard him. "Son, please call me back. We made mistakes. We need help." I almost called back. Almost. But then I remembered. Everyone's replaceable. That's what Drew said. "You had advantages," Dad said. "She'll never be family," Mom said. So I let the voicemail sit there, unplayed, while I got back to work. Month 5, my cousin Alex called. "Dude, your dad's shop is dying. They're down to maybe 20 employees, lost most of their major clients, and Drew apparently had a complete meltdown last week. Screamed at a mechanic for suggesting a repair approach, and the guy just walked out. Sounds like optimal operational efficiency to me. Your dad's asking about you. Wants to know if you'd consider talking." "About what? Coming back? Being the savior after they tried to screw me? I don't think that's what he wants. I think he's just realizing how badly he messed up. Little late for that." That's when Alex called again at 2 in the morning. "Your dad collapsed at the shop," Alex said without preamble. "He's at Memorial Hospital. It's bad." I was out of bed before I'd fully processed the words. Jen grabbed her keys without asking questions. 20 minutes later, we were in the ER waiting room. Mom was there, looking like she'd aged 10 years and 6 months. When she saw me, her face crumpled. Not the manipulative tears from before. These were real. "They think it's a heart attack," she said, "combined with the asbestosis complications. He's in surgery now. Where's Drew?" Her face hardened. "I called him 4 hours ago. He said he'd come, but nothing." We waited. Finally, a doctor emerged. "Mr. Rodriguez is stable, but barely. The heart attack was severe. Combined with his existing lung damage, we're looking at extensive care requirements. He'll need monitoring, medication, potentially home oxygen. The costs will be significant." "How significant?" Mom asked. "Initial hospitalization will run about $180,000. Ongoing treatment could be $5,000 to $10,000 monthly, depending on complications." Mom went pale. "We don't have that. The business is failing. We already sold the house to cover debts." The doctor looked sympathetic but firm. "We can discuss payment plans. He'll need surgery within the week. A cardiac procedure that's another $90,000 minimum. Without it, his survival odds drop significantly." "I'll cover the medical bills," I said. "All of them." Mom's head snapped up. "What? You heard me. Dad's medical care. I'll pay for it. But I have conditions." "Anything," she whispered. "First, this is for Dad's medical bills. Nothing else. Not the house, not the business, not Drew's problems. Second, I set up the accounts directly with the hospital and pharmacy. You don't see a dime of cash. Dad survived the surgery. Came out of recovery looking like death rewarmed. Tubes everywhere. Barely conscious. When he saw me, tears leaked from his eyes. "You came," he whispered, "for your health. That's it." I'm sorry. So sorry. You were right about everything. Yeah, I was. Drew finally showed up 3 days later when Dad was stable. Walked into the hospital room like he'd been there all along. How is he? Alive, I said. No thanks to you. Where were you? I had work commitments. I couldn't just drop everything. Dad almost died and you had work commitments. Got it. Mom's voice was ice. Your brother has been here every day, paying for everything. And you couldn't bother to show up for 3 days? Drew looked uncomfortable. I'm here now. That's what matters. Actually, it doesn't, I said. Per the arrangement, you contribute to Dad's care or you don't get to play concerned son. What's your contribution? I don't have that kind of money right now. Then get out. Drew left. Mom didn't stop him. That's when I knew something had shifted. Over the next 2 weeks, I paid $287,000 for Dad's care, set up automated payments for his medications, $4,800 monthly, arranged home oxygen, physical therapy, cardiac monitoring, everything through accounts I controlled directly. Drew called once, demanding I stop poisoning Mom against him. I hung up. He tried showing up at my shop. Tommy and 2 other mechanics escorted him off the property with a clear message. Come back, deal with cops. Dad stabilized over the following months. I kept paying his medical bills. Kept my word on that. But the boundaries held firm. No family gatherings, no we should talk conversations. Just automated payments to keep him alive and nothing more. My business kept growing. Hit $750,000 monthly revenue by month 9. Landed 3 major mining contracts and a municipal maintenance deal worth $2.3 million annually. Employed 42 people, ran 20 service vehicles, and had a waiting list of companies wanting our services. Jen and I moved the wedding up when we found out she was pregnant. Married her in her parents' backyard on a perfect October afternoon. Small ceremony, maybe 50 people, all of them actual friends or family that mattered. Her dad gave a toast about integrity, about men who understand responsibility and follow through. Drew's spiral continued. Heard through Alex that he'd moved back home with our parents into their small rental. Took a job at some regional firm, making barely $70,000. His LinkedIn profile stopped getting updates. The guy who was supposed to bring MBA-level thinking to a diesel shop was delivering pizzas on weekends to cover rent. Some lessons cost more than others. Our daughter was born on a freezing January morning. 7 pounds, healthy, perfect. We named her Elena after Jen's grandmother. When I held her for the first time, something fundamental shifted. This was real family. Not obligation, not DNA, not guilt, just choice and love, and building something worth protecting. Dad called 3 months after Elena was born. I almost didn't answer. I heard you had a baby, he said. His voice was stronger now. Treatment's working. Congratulations. Thanks. I don't expect to meet her. I know the boundaries. But I wanted to say, you're going to be a better father than I was. You already are. Silence hit hard. Real recognition from a man who'd spent years not seeing me. Drew asked me for money last week, Dad continued. Said he needed help with bills. I told him no. Told him some people earn help. Others just expect it. Good. I don't deserve forgiveness. But you were right about everything. And I'm proud of what you built. But because it's real. We talked for 10 more minutes. No tears, no reconciliation. Just acknowledgement. 2 years later, Rodriguez Heavy Equipment Repair hit $1.2 million in monthly revenue. 53 employees, 23 service vehicles, 14 major contracts. Business equity north of $5 million. Drew's life kept spiraling. Lost another job. Moved back home with Mom and Dad into their small rental. Last I heard, he was delivering pizzas on weekends to make rent. The guy who was supposed to professionalize a diesel shop couldn't professionalize his own life. Some lessons cost everything. Elena turned 2. Smart kid, loved the shop, loved watching mechanics work. Jen was pregnant again. A boy. We'd named him Daniel after her grandfather. Real family. Built on choice and love, not obligation. Mom sends birthday cards. Never pushes boundaries. Never asks to visit. Just acknowledges from a distance that she lost something irreplaceable. When I look at Elena, at Jen, at the crew who believed in me from day one, and I know, respect is earned, actions have consequences, and walking away from people who don't value you isn't cruelty. It's self-preservation. The shop opens at 6 a.m. I'm usually there by 5:30, coffee in hand, Elena's drawing taped to my office wall. The crew rolls in, work begins, another day of building something real with people who matter. That's the legacy Dad never understood. It's not about passing down a business. It's about teaching your kids their worth isn't negotiable, Their boundaries aren't suggestions, and family is who shows up. Elena will learn that. Daniel, too. They'll know respect is earned, not given. The Rodriguez name lives on, just not with the people who thought they owned it. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.